Okay, what's up, YouTube? There might be a bit of sound distortion, or not really sound distortion, but sound pollution, because I just got off work and I'm pretty close to a freeway. But I wanted to make this video for those of you that are still struggling with psychological disorders. The ones I was dealing with were depression and A.D.D. Pretty badly, but I still struggle with both. I'm not really struggle, but I still have both of them. And I was looking back at the two other videos that I had made 9 and 10 years ago, and it was honestly really crazy and a little sad seeing how hollow and detached I used to be. I was very detached, and you could probably tell it. I can certainly tell looking back in those videos. I'm going to be looking this direction because I've got a little list of bullet points to keep me on track in this video. But having said that, I was doing that in the previous videos 9 and 10 years ago, but a couple of you commented on it and you weren't wrong. I could not keep my train of thought, and I was just blanking out a lot, but that's not really the case with me anymore. I'm much more present. I'm much more focused. I speak a lot better. I don't stutter as much. So yeah, I just wanted to make this video because I think I left probably a lot of unanswered questions, and I know that I said that I was going to make following videos, and I never did, which probably made it seem like something happened to me maybe. I've been through a lot, but I'm fine, I'm healthy, I'm happy, I'm not depressed as much. I say that because really I'm not that depressed, but the reality is that even when you're better, depression never entirely leaves you. It's always kind of there, on the back burner. You can feel it a little bit, even if it's not dictating your life. And the fact is, you have to stay on top of it. Not overcoming, but not letting depression ruin your life is a battle that it's a lifelong battle that you have to stay proactive on about essentially your whole life. You can't ever take your foot off the gas pedal in terms of not letting the depression creep back up. And I've been doing really well with that for probably at least 3 to 4 years. The big game changer for me about 4 years ago was finally moving out of my parents' house at the age of 24. I'm 28 right now, about to go on 29 in a couple months. But man, living under my parents' roof was one of the most psychologically debilitating things I've ever dealt with. I mean, when you're in your mid-20s, it's just, I can't think of too many other things that are so damaging to someone's self-esteem, especially when you're trying to date people. I mean, for me, is I got some girls, but I just never felt worthy, or I was very impressive, basically, because I was living with my parents. And what's impressive about that? At least to me. What I did about 4, maybe 5 years ago was I started talking to my parents about working out a deal that would allow me to move to my city of choice. I had been working a job for about a year, and at that point they gave me the option to either become a manager or basically to transfer to essentially any city I wanted, because I worked for a huge corporation that has locations in every in every city basically, and I had the opportunity to be making probably $50,000 a year, like that. But I would have been stuck in a city, my hometown, that I was dying to get out of. So I took the opportunity to transfer at my current at the time position, and I moved to essentially the city of my dreams at the time, which I'm still living in. I don't know for how much longer, because I kind of have a case of wanderlust, and I'm not sure that I can stay grounded in one city for more than 5, maybe 10 years. Probably closer to 5. But so yeah, I did that, and I worked out a plan with them, with my parents, basically saying that if I was able to hold down my part-time job while succeeding in community college. Previously, I basically failed all my classes in my previous attempts at community college in California. I actually got academic probation from the community college network that I was in. So I moved out of state. I moved out of state and started up at a new community college, and I didn't have a lot of money because I was working a part-time job, so that was part of the deal that I made with my parents. I knew that I wasn't going to be financially stable starting out, and so the plan that I worked out with them was if I held down my job and I did well in school, they would spot me rent money when needed. I still had to pay them back, which I'm glad they made me do, because I think it would have made me, I think having to pay them back just made me more responsible and stronger, made me more of an adult, and so I'm glad they didn't give me money. But so I held down my job, and I actually did really well in school. I got my associate's degree with 3.5 GPA, which put me on the dean's list for just about the whole time that I was going there. And I think that, or my finger is not in my ear, I'm just scratching my earlobe. But I don't know that I would have been able to succeed on that level with school had I not been living in a city that excited me under certain conditions. I think the conditions that I was living here under was the incentive that I needed in order to succeed. Looking back at my list. And the other thing that I don't know that I was anticipating this. I really don't think I was anticipating this, because I don't know how I could have. But I essentially live downtown in the city that I live in, and living in an urban environment where I had to interact with strangers, still have to interact with strangers every single day. You walk down the street and you're passing up strangers all the time. And before I had moved here, I was living in a suburban environment. And in a suburban environment, as I'm sure many of you know, it's incredibly easy to basically not have to see anyone other than when you go to work. It is incredibly easy to just not see anyone, not have to interact with anyone that you don't have to. So living in an urban environment and passing up people all the time, having to deal with homeless, not so much deal with, but like interact with homeless people, or just social strangers on a pretty much daily, was it. I think that was one of the most beneficial things I've ever done for my essentially debilitating case of social anxiety. I had social anxiety so bad that I wouldn't pick up my phone for friends, I wouldn't pick up my phone for family, because just getting that phone call would make my anxiety just spike. I don't know why. Just the factor of the unknown, I guess, but getting a phone call would just wreck me, so social anxiety wise, and I would just ignore people. And so forcing yourself into an environment where you have to deal with strangers all the time, it's scary. Certainly it sucked ass at first. I hated it at first, but I don't hate it anymore, and I think it's one of the best decisions that I ever made, because I really do believe that if I had never done that, I probably still would be. I still struggle with a little bit of social anxiety, but if you call me, I'll pick up the phone. I'll pick up the phone for numbers that I don't know most of the time, unless I suspect it's a solicitor. Fuck solicitors. But yeah, I really can't underestimate the value of throwing yourself into the fire in that sense, and just stepping out of your comfort zone. You hear it all the time, but it's crucial. It is absolutely crucial, stepping out of your comfort zone, because if you never do it, you'll never grow. One of the biggest struggles for me starting out with just walking down the street in a city was I was always looking at the ground. I was just looking at my feet, looking at the sidewalk, just to avoid making eye contact with strangers, because most people that live in the city don't have these issues anymore. And most people that live in the city are not social, that have been living in the city for an extended period of time, don't really struggle with social anxiety. And so you pass people up and they'll look you straight in your eye. They'll look at you, they'll wave, sometimes they'll wave at you, they'll give you a head nod, and I was not having it. I couldn't. And so I was always looking at my shoes, and I started thinking about it, and it started bothering me that I was acting that way. And so my first step at conquering that was just wearing sunglasses all the time, pretty much. When I was walking down the street, I'd wear sunglasses so that I could just look ahead, look straight forward, not look at the ground. And after a few months of that, I got to the point where I could take off my sunglasses and I could look at people in the eyes, give them a head nod back, whatever. And now I'm one of those people that always does it. I will look at anyone and everyone on the sidewalk, and that is not who I used to be. And it makes me really happy that I've made that improvement. And I just feel like that's something that you don't really hear about much when people talk about anxiety, or social anxiety in particular. I've had conversations with people that have or had struggled with social anxiety, and that's not a topic or a strategy that comes up very often, but it is the strategy that worked the best for me. Let's see. I Got done with that page. On to the next page. My video might just cut out at some point because I'm not sure how much memory space my phone has, so I apologize if that happens, and I'll make a follow-up video. Swear to God this time. I think, so, just to, I don't know if I already said this, but I just want to make it clear, I'm not on a single medication. I haven't been for at least 7 years, probably. No A.D.D medications, no depression medication. I'm not even on SAM-E anymore, even though I think that is like the first step that got me towards the point of eating healthy and doing cardio, which was the catalyst towards me really taking my education and my mental health seriously. But after that, after having done that, I think the most significant thing that I ever did for my depression was, and I had serious depression. I was borderline suicidal like every single day throughout high school, and for a few years after, I contemplated and I longed for death like every day. If I wasn't hanging out with friends, I was trying to sleep my life away. And if I wasn't asleep, I was fucking jacking off all the time. Playing video games, watching movies, just anything to disengage from how miserable I was. And so having said that, I think the best thing I ever did for my depression was getting to the point of realizing and pursuing my interests and eventually forming my goals. And I did that through going to community college. And I hate how stigmatized community college is. Honestly, the community college that I went to, in a lot of ways, was a lot better than the university that I'm currently in. And some of the best teachers, most inspirational teachers I ever had, I had at my community college. Some of my favorite people and people that inspire me the most, I met at community college. So going to school and taking it seriously, having the incentive to finally take it seriously and realize my interests and pursue my goals is probably the most important thing that I ever did. Aside from moving out with my parents, probably the most important thing I ever did in terms of getting on top of my depression and keeping it down. Because before that, I was aimless. I didn't know who the fuck I was. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I essentially didn't want to do anything other than somehow make it in the music industry, which I eventually just got super jaded off of. For those of you that don't know, the music industry, especially the local music industry, is extremely cutthroat, and there are a lot of sharks out there just looking to screw over young, naive people. It's disgusting. There's a lot of a lot of ego issues in the industry, especially when you're dealing with bands that are gaining a little bit of traction. Well, once they start gaining traction, the egos inflate like crazy, especially with vocalists. And I loved the industry, but I hated it. I think I hated it even more, and so I left it. But having moved and having started school, I eventually realized that I wanted to get into environmental sciences, and after having gotten accepted into my university and taking university classes, I realized that I wanted to to get my master's in urban geography or community planning. It varies depending on the school. The name of the major varies. But I want to be a community planner. I want to be a part of making communities better, utilizing nonprofits, utilizing sustainable infrastructure, just making cities a better place, a more sustainable place. improving ghettos, essentially. So yeah, just to reinstate, because I really can't emphasize this enough, but defeating depression, it really is a lifelong battle that you have to be proactive about 100% of the time, basically. It never leaves you. It will always be there on the back burner, but when it's there on the back burner, it's not ruling your life, because you've got so much ahead of it. You've got your goals, you've got your education, you're learning about things, once you're not suffocating from social anxiety, well, now you're socializing, now you have more friends, now you're out doing things, and that all contributes to not letting depression take control of your mind. I will say that throughout 2020, I have been dealing with a bit of situational depression, pandemic depression, being cooped up, having been on a hiatus from my schooling because I hate online school. I had a traumatic experience with an online teacher. She was horribly disorganized, basically abusive, had ridiculously unrealistic expectations of us, and essentially my school pigeonholed me into her class by cutting out a bunch of the other classes I was already signed up for, and they hired her knowing all these things, because she had a long track record on Rate My Professors and other websites, even the media. Some of her students went out to the media in like Michigan. She's an adjunct professor, but she was in like Michigan or Illinois or something, and she had a class revolt against her, and the media, the students went to the media, and the media wrote a whole story about it, and so there's no way my school didn't know that they were setting us up to fail. And so I basically have not been going to school during 2020 because I refuse to pay for my school to screw me. I love the university that I go to when it's on campus in class, because I am that student that I've realized that I have to sit at the front of a classroom in order to disengage myself from distractions. And I'm that student that will ask any and every question. I love playing devil's advocate. I love the back and forth between professor and student. It's how I learn, and I just don't get that as much in online schooling. Once we're back to, I hope to God, once we're back to in-classroom schooling, I will be there. But yeah, having not been in conventional education and pretty much being cooped up, not doing cardio as much. Part of that is because it's been the winter and the area that I live in now gets pretty cold. But a combination of not working out as much and not being in school has led to my depression creeping up a bit. But I'm still eating healthy. I'm still learning about things in my own fashion. Like, I want to be an investor. So I've started learning about that. Started investing a little bit. I'm reading a lot more. I always loved reading when I was a kid, and I fell off of it for years. And I started that back up because I also want to be a writer. But during 2020, 2020 really kind of reinforced my suspicion that depression will creep back up on you if you take your foot off the gas pedal. Because I've had some pretty low moments this year, but I'm still better than exponentially better than I was 9 years ago, or whatever the time was that I made that last video, 7 years ago even. The other thing that, and I already know that pretty much all of you have already heard this, but it's the truth. Meditation is, I don't even know where to begin. Like, for ADD and depression, it is one of the most important tools that I utilize. Daily meditation. I do it Monday through Friday, 10 minutes a day. Not 10 minutes a day. I started out doing it 10 minutes a day. Now I do it 15 minutes a day. And the only way that I was able to make this basically the only way I was able to build this into my schedule and make it a consistent thing was I sacrifice one of my smoke breaks. I don't smoke anymore. I sacrifice one of my smoke breaks at work every single day to a meditation session. So even if I have some days where I only have one, where one smoke break is the only break that I have, and I still meditate on that break, because the benefits of daily meditation are that incredible. I think it's almost mandatory that you start with guided meditation, because a lot of my friends that I suggest this to, they say that, I can't sit there and just sit there in my thoughts. I can't turn my brain off. I just start thinking about things. And yeah, that, of course, like, how could you not, basically? But guided meditation, you have someone walking you through it, you have relaxing music, you have someone guiding you through proven technique, and they incorporate deep breathing techniques into the meditation, which I think should be mandatory, because deep breathing has just a whole other list of benefits of its own. Even health benefits, like lung capacity expansion. I can run so much easier now just from deep breathing. Like, I don't get stitches in my side nearly as easily. I can run way farther, way faster, way easier. And that's just from deep breathing meditation. Literally, I hadn't been running a couple years ago. I hadn't been running for years, probably, and maybe not years, but like months. I hadn't been running seriously, and after maybe like 4 to 6 months of daily deep breathing meditation, I decided to start running again, and it blew my mind. I was running and I was like, what the fuck is going on? I don't have to struggle for breath. My side doesn't hurt. I'm not gasping for air. I felt like a superhuman, and that's the benefit of sustained deep breathing meditation. And I say sustained because I didn't gain tangible improvements in my mind or in my body until literally months of sustained daily deep breathing meditation. For months I was wondering, like, is this even doing anything? But the studies are so overwhelmingly positive and essentially, like, they say factual, that I figured I just had to continue through with it, and I am so unbelievably glad that I did, because it keeps me focused in my mind. As you can probably see, if you compare this to my past videos, I'm so much more present. I'm not just struggling to figure out like every other next word that I'm about to say. I'm happier. I'm more confident. It affects like every aspect of your psychological health, and probably like almost every aspect of your physical health in a lot of ways. So long as you are eating healthy along with it. So that's probably enough about meditation, although I could keep going on. This next part, I want to make a disclaimer. I'm not advising anyone to do drugs, but I've done a lot of drugs in the past 8 years maybe, mostly psychedelics, because that's what's most interesting to me. It's what's most fun to me. It's not to say that I haven't done cocaine. I've done it. Never bought it for myself. Thankfully, I have a strong level of willpower. But yeah, I just want to be totally honest and transparent in this video. Just to be, I just think that's the right way to do these things. But psychedelics changed me. Honestly, I think psychedelics changed me. I did a lot of acid. I did a lot of mushrooms. I did DMT a couple times, but it never really affected me, even though it affected the other people I was doing it with. There's a small percentage of people that aren't affected nearly as strongly as they should be by DMT, but I do still suspect that it had neurological benefits for me, because I've seen changes in myself that I haven't seen in other friends that have similar mental struggles, psychological struggles as I do, and that were doing the same drugs as me, aside from DMT. It's not to say that like that's conclusive evidence that DMT did make those changes that I suspect, but it's curious. I do think it's curious, and there's so much research coming out on DMT, on mushrooms, that it just makes me really wonder. And there's a lot of, again, for just full transparency, I think I've probably had 4 concussions throughout my life. And there's a lot of really damning evidence that that DMT and even mushrooms have really, really beneficial healing effects for people that struggle with the people that have been affected by CTE, which is brain damage from concussions. In case you didn't know, it can completely change a person. Like, if you pay attention to football, a lot of those athletes that have racked up too many concussions, they start beating their wives, they start fighting dogs. I don't need to say names, but if you follow football, you know who I'm talking about, that started fighting pit bulls. But the NFL, just football in general, football players, obviously it's an infamously dangerous sport for head injuries, and it changes football players. I know football players personally that have told me that they are not the same person that they used to be after they got the concussion that just sent them over the edge. But I mean, if you compare football players to basketball players and their track records in terms of just reckless or horrible behavior, it's night and day. The NBA does not struggle with having to contend with all of those issues, even nearly as close as the NFL. And so there have been a lot of studies done on the effects of DMT and mushrooms on on people like that, on football players. There have been football advocate, like football NFL players that advocate how much DMT or mushrooms help them. So I really do think that and there's been a lot of studies on DMT and mushrooms effect on just depression, and I'm not sure about ADD. I'll have to look into that, but certainly on depression, and the studies are very promising. There's a lot of promising results, and it's a relatively new field of study. So there's still a lot of research to be done to really make like truly conclusive statements. But I think that the psychedelics that I took really did change me for the better. It opened up my eyes in a lot of ways. It made me more introspective. It gave me a lot more perspective. For years, I told people that I would either tell people that I was an atheist or I was an agnostic atheist. If you don't know what agnostic means, it means that you don't know, basically. That you don't know if there is a God or if there's not, and that you're not willing to say that you do know. And an agnostic atheist is someone who doesn't really know but suspects that there's nothing. And that's what I was. I really didn't believe in anything, but I wasn't willing to say that I knew for sure. And ever since having done a pretty fair amount of psychedelics, I'm no longer willing to say that. I still don't know what it is that's out there, but I suspect that there is something out there, even if it's just like a collective life force. Essentially, nature is my God, basically, because that's, I believe, what I can see. And I don't really know how to put it into words, but I guess now I essentially mostly believe in some form of reincarnation. I believe that if there are infinite parallel universes, if the universe goes on forever, and if time is infinite, then all of this will repeat itself. I will make this video again at some point in the future in some other dimension. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but I don't think life just ends. I think we go back to home base, essentially. And I don't know what that is, but I don't believe in nothing anymore. And that's been incredibly comforting to me. And I don't know that I would have gotten there without psychedelics. Full transparency, again, I'm now realizing another kind of crazy psychedelic that I've done is ketamine. I only did it once, but that was shortly before the time that I started making significant changes. And again, I'm absolutely not telling anyone to do drugs, and I'm certainly, I cannot say this strongly enough. Never play dangerous. Never play risky with your brain. I played risky with my brain because I was ignorant, naive. I was dumb, and I certainly played risky. And thankfully, I think I have a very strong mind. Not super impressionable, but had I been very impressionable, it could have ruined me. I've seen it. I've seen it multiple times. People that have played risky with psychedelics, and it's fucking ruined them. It's driven them literally to the point of insanity. to egomania. It's a wide spectrum of the ways that playing risky with psychedelics can seriously fuck you mentally. So I really can't understate that enough. You play dangerous and you could ruin yourself, and ruining your brain is not worth it at all. I also want to say that I do know people who over-the-counter prescription drugs have been the only thing that has kept them breathing, essentially. I know people that are suicidal, and certain antidepressants are the only thing that's kept them from killing themselves. For most people, I don't think that prescription over-the-counter drugs are the long-term answer. I think that I tell everyone, I encourage everyone to look into holistic therapy, holistic medicine, meditation, just doing anything that you can naturally to try to make yourself better, because I think that is the long-term solution. Just utilizing natural medicine, natural techniques to better yourself. And for those of you that don't know, food is a medicine. If you don't know, look up superfoods. There are certain foods and natural supplements that literally act as medicine, incredibly powerful medicine, and mushrooms are just one of those natural medicines, natural food medicines. And it doesn't even have to be psychedelic, because there have been many studies that have shown that just regular mushrooms that you can buy at the supermarket have many, if not all, of the same neurological benefits. The one that comes to mind right now, it might be a little expensive, but completely worth it, is lion's mane mushroom. You can find the powder of it on Amazon. I would suggest that you don't buy it if it's coming from China, because that means that it's going to be a lot older and therefore less potent. But that's just like that's one example of food that can heal you. Having said that, I eat lots of antioxidants. I eat a ton of asparagus. I eat a lot of broccoli. I eat a lot of carrots, a lot of brown rice. I eat lean, so I mostly eat chicken. I eat oats and blueberries, other berries, bananas. I've been kind of falling off of that recently, ever since I started intermittent fasting. But I need to get back on it, because oats and berries are, no doubt, they are superfoods, and they have incredible benefits for you, physically and mentally. So what else do I have on this list? I think I'm getting towards the end here. So yeah, I wanted to make this video for those of you that are still struggling with psychological issues of your own, and as well as for those of you that may have been worrying about me. I mean, I completely fell off the face of my channel, even though I only made like 2 videos. 2 videos? Yeah, I think I only made 2 videos. But they got more, even though it's not a lot of views, it was certainly more views than I had expected. I certainly didn't expect people to continue viewing them throughout the years and to continue asking me questions about myself or like about my opinions. I thought maybe I would get like responses for a few months, certainly not a few years, certainly not like 8 to 10 years later. So I'm alive, I'm well. I definitely went through my experience, through some crazy experiences, through various struggles, since the time that I had made those videos, my first videos. and I realized that I looked pretty bad, really. I looked out of it. I looked gone. I think my first video I had short hair, and then like all of a sudden my hair is like down to my shoulders, which is normal. I've always been visually ambiguous. I've always liked having long hair, as you can tell right now. I have it again. I'm just thinking about the fact that like a year ago, maybe like a little more, I was completely just shaving my head with a razor. I was going bald just for the hell of it, just for the experience, to see what it was like. But despite how I looked, despite how I sounded, I'm fine. I'm healthy. I'm happy. I'm more inspired than I've ever been. Which leads me to my next and maybe my final point, which is that I'm uploading this video to this channel because I relatively recently came to the conclusion or the decision that I want to be outspoken about my life experiences. I want to be outspoken about what's worked for me, what's not worked for me, what's made me who I am, and I've decided that I want to share my personal philosophy that I've basically formed through my life experiences, through the various self-analyzed trauma that I've gone through. And so since my videos on this channel have generated like, I don't know, 15 to 20,000 views, that's 15 to 20,000 more views than I have anywhere else. So I figure what better place to make a video like this and maybe more than right here on this channel, where a handful of people are being drawn to. So yeah, I'm interested in being a writer. I'm interested in being a stand-up. I shouldn't say interested. I want to be a writer. I want to be a stand-up comedian. I want a podcast. Maybe make creative, like short film type videos. Essentially, I have a lot of interests in life, a lot of creative interests, and I've recently realized that being essentially a shut-in, that a very closed-up shut-in type of person is extremely it doesn't contribute to that. It doesn't contribute to reaching goals that you don't share with people. And so I realized that making these things known, especially to your friends, I've made these things known to, like, I posted it to my Facebook, where I have like over 800 people on my friends list. And I realized that making your goals known to those that know you and anyone else, it really helps make yourself accountable for your actions, for what you said that you are going to do. And I had never done that for a long time, for years, and I've had some of these aspirations for years. Certainly being a writer, I've wanted to be a writer like since I was a kid, but I never really talked about it too much with anyone, aside from maybe like those that knew me best, like a very small, like literal handful of people. And so I never really had the pressure needed to go out and do those things. So I'm making that known now to whoever watches this, and maybe I make a different channel in the future, but I don't know that I will. I might just keep uploading here. So if you enjoyed this 50-minute video, go ahead and subscribe. I'm not going to say any of that cringy shit, like smash that subscribe button, even though I just said it. I'm not that, I think that's cringy. So if you want, go ahead, subscribe. If you don't want to subscribe, I couldn't give a shit. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep making these videos. Yeah, it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is doing what I want to do, and that's sharing myself with the world. So if you're interested, go ahead and subscribe. And if you have any thoughts, any comments, if you want to say fuck you, suck a dick, go ahead and post it in the comments below. And I'll see you guys later. Thanks for, if you got through this video, if you're listening to this now, thank you so much for sticking through with it. It means a lot. So I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a wonderful day. Take care.